Alright guys, Supreme Kami over here. So now let's actually take a look at the second half, or the Aesculapius over here. So we only have 6 for this kind of go over, so hopefully I can just make this real quick. Shouldn't be too much to really go over. I think all the parts are pretty much self-explanatory. I will have to say this is I don't know. I feel like this may not be like a letdown depending on how you look at that. Okay, so let me actually mention if you guys should summon let's say 10 times this week to get the latest build project pilot Camille over here. I will have to say no. Because the portrait is only, if you guys see over here, it's only when attacking with beams. So if you guys, for example, are, let's say you are going to be using any physical shot, let's say the infamous one, the actual drop, you will not be able to get the benefit of that 30% EXP power boosting, which is going to be detrimental in, let's say, first wave of arena, for example, right? Because first wave you need the most amount of damage you can hit, and this one's not really giving it. So that's why I'll have to say Camille is probably not going to be your best option. I mean, although you can kind of argue that the stat is extremely high, but let's be honest, right? Any new parts coming out today is definitely going to be a lot more better in stat quality than what we had previously. But the portrait riders over here, this is not looking good. So what is going to be the next best option if you ask me? But let's keep this in mind as well. This one is going to be a middle shooter and a long shooter together. So if you are going to run into a situation where you need to switch in between, let's say, mid fighter, mid shooter, and long shooter, you have the option right here as well. But if you take a look at Rolla, Laura Rolla over here, I would argue that she may not be a little bit better, depending on her portrait. She is going to be a non-conditional shooting power boosting when you have, let's say, Gundam type activated right there, or in terms of word tag. You're not really going to have any restriction, let's say, locking down to beam, for example. So that's why it makes her a lot more versatile in terms of the portrait. But her downside is definitely going to be her job license available. She's only going to be offering middle shooter. So if you, for example, do want to switch in between long shooter, she's not going to be your pilot for sure. So that is going to be something to just kind of keep in mind right there as well. So it's more or less a give or take, for example. So if you want to have a better portrait where it's not going to be any, let's say, restriction, definitely go for her. But if you guys are, let's say, a lot of your parts are dedicated to, let's say, long shooter, for example, she is definitely not going to be your best option, and maybe Camille is a better option if you guys do want to invest into a build project pilot, for example. Yeah, so that is pretty much it. Just want to talk to you guys about this right here. So let's actually return to the Aesculapius Alteration review. There's definitely two really good part and one that is like a must-have in my opinion. So let's actually get started now. So the head, should I not click on this? I don't know. Let's see. Hopefully it doesn't glitch on me, or else I'm gonna have to come back again. But in terms of the head, I really like the head for the one factor that they're actually going to be giving us a buff EX effects up by 30% when you have this guy maxed out here. So this is something that I have been talking about in order to do like really like huge, big, gigantic damage, right? You would have to have these kind of buff effect skills right here. So these are always going to be really relevant. But I would have to say the only downside factor is arm. One of your EX skills is going to be bound, or in terms of the first portrait, it's going to be bounded to like an arm EX skill that is going to do a little bit more damage, which is probably the only thing I don't like. Besides that, the only thing you can kind of tackle alongside that, you can say that's bad, is probably going to be is locked to S attribute, so you won't be able to, let's say, I don't know, use it in your other build, which is, I would have to say that right now, maybe S attribute and T attribute, they both have quite the amount of parts that you can make a really good buff out team right here. I think P attribute is probably the one that has the less amount, but nonetheless, I would have to say this is a really good parts to be looking at. So in terms of looking at the scaling of like how it's looking at, it's not bad, right? Ranking number 4 is definitely top-notch parts we're looking at. Word type wise over here, it does have Gundam type, which may not be the best option obviously, but we do have tons of like melee head currently. This have maybe Gundam type, and then let's say close combat, for example. So you can definitely subslot that option, and then trying to get close combat or whatsoever, right? So that can be a workaround. But yeah, if you guys ever did pull the head for this one, for example, this is definitely a mess ultra just for this over here. But like I said again, just having this one may be a little bit of a hindrance for a lot of people out there, definitely, because because not everyone might use the army skills, so in that regards, you are more or less forced to use one right there in order to take advantage of that, right? But nonetheless, this is definitely a top tier part that I will recommend alterating. So moving, I didn't glitch. Oh my gosh, what is it fixed? I don't think it's fixed, but how's that working right now? Nice, definitely real good then. In terms of the chest right here, the chest is how's the chest looking? Oh, the chest is actually not that high as I have expected, huh? I thought it's like really high up there, but you're gonna be outclassed by the build project running Gundam. Blazing is still up there. That's really good. So if any of you guys do have the blazing chest, definitely run that over this one. I will have to say, because the blazing actually comes with a 40% trade. The GN Ultra does have some pretty high stat as well. Same war tag as this one as well. Okay, but the GN Ultra does outclass this one in terms of stat. GN Ultra does have an EX skill, so pretty much the same as this one. So if you guys have that one as well, you guys should be pretty safe. Or if you guys have the double quantum for Saber, that one is also a good option as well. Protect and then close combat, you can't ask for a better combo on that. But this one does have some ridiculous armor as well, but not. But definitely 1000 shy from the try burning in them. So what, like overall, what this chest is trying to do right now is completely got outclassed by what we have already. So that is going to be the unfortunate factor right there. So let's take a look at the PX system activation over here. So activating your PX system for enhanced combat paralysis over here. Raise speed by 20% as well as melee attack up by 39% and then shot attack up by 19%. I mean, like, regardless if you are going to be using this EX skill for or this awakening, you just want that melee power boosted by 39%, for example. So I'm just going to say that we do have a better options out there already, specifically boosting this melee. So I feel like alterating this one is not really going to be all that beneficial anyways. So this is definitely going to be a part I would say if you guys do pull this chest, for example. I'm just going to be saying hold off on the alteration for now. But do keep in mind that alteration does not have any let's say ending period. So if you guys decide to come back around to this alteration maybe a few weeks later or even a few months later, that is definitely fine, but I just don't find that good of a purpose altering and awakening anyways to begin with. Even the stats, man, even a stat is not like ooh top tier. For example, if you like just look at the list right there, we have like better options that were released like a few weeks ago or even a few months ago are still a lot more better. So for that being said, so this one is just not good, right? So let's move on now. Moving on to the arm is unfortunately is going to be bounded to an EX skill, so you can't really you can't really make too much out of it because if you are going to be subsliding, there's currently not a good subslide option where you can get double power boosting. You can definitely go for your big skill like the standard big skill, but they're not offering that premium portrait. They are giving you that one specifically good portrait, but the other one are just kind of like crit. You're gonna increase your crit. Like I don't think I want that, right? So this one I will have to say is more dedicated for like it's exclusively for skin, dedicated just for the EX if you want that. So this one is gonna be the Python Claw over here. So changes your arm to close combat mode and attack with your claw-shaped vibrating blade. Raise your attack melee attack up by 14%. So I do have this arm, and then if you don't alterate it, I believe it's only coming in at D power. So this one is definitely one of those situations where you really this is a must alterate if you really want to use this EX skill here. And keep this in mind, this is gonna be an awakenable EX skill, so you're gonna apply that 14%, right? And then whatever you apply from your PX system, that completely gets rendered off because you cannot really stack to awaken EX skill. So that is going to be the unfortunate factor. So it's either you're going to use this army EX skill for the like that, or you're going to be using a PX system. So you guys really have to choose which one of the two, for example. But in terms of the buff duration, this one definitely has a shorter time. This one roughly, I don't know, maybe give or take less than 10 seconds, for example, or even longer than that. But the awakening definitely has a longer time period. So that is also something to just kind of keep in mind right there as well. So other than that, I if you specifically want to use this EX skill, yes, you would alterate it. If you don't really want to use this, like if you don't care too much about the EX skill, I would just kind of say just no alteration for this one, just because of the fact that for one, you can't really subslide itself again because this is going to be bounded to an EX skill, so you're left with no portrait, which is not good. You never want to run into a situation where you cannot equip yourself with portrait, because portrait are like literally the only thing that allows you to hit hard. So, or not even just hit hard, right? Just allowing you to use your EX skill a lot more faster. For example, like putting in initial charge boosting, or some what cooldown reduction type portrait. So make sure to always use portrait, and this one just I'm just gonna say no to alteration for this one. So far the chest and then the arm is like more of like a, I don't know, like a, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like I feel like they're not giving me that wow, like So maybe the head definitely did give me the wow reaction, but the chest and then the arm is like, I don't even know what to say. I'm just kind of speechless at this point. Yeah. So moving on to the leg. The leg is does have some pretty high armor as well. That is something I would definitely give. In terms of whatever else is pretty mediocre. Melee is definitely trying its best to try to stay relevant. 4170 is not a bad option. That's like not a bad stat. And then 5565 for melee defense is not too shabby at all. There is not going to be any physical resistance if you guys do care about that. Um, in terms of word tag wise over here, I think it's sufficient enough because we do have pretty good options where there's another, like if your subslot for example has Gundam type and then close combat for example, you can definitely do a good subslot right there. But maybe looking into the big scale, I think big scale definitely serve a bigger role into getting bigger stats and maybe better word tag comboing into close combat for example. um, what does this one do? Ooh. So this one is going to be one of those that is enemy EXQ reduction by 30%. So for any of you guys do want to build a reduction type build, this is definitely going to be a option to be looking at. But like I said again, in terms of looking at, let's say, building a CUDA or EXQ, or not EXQ, just an enemy reduction type build, I will have to say going for a standard part with alteration, or even warfare part with alteration. I think those are probably like the most effective way, because these are just too expensive, right? Getting up to like a EX skill or like a portrait level 10 is like kind of impossible unless you put it into those grow panger for like many weeks. But this is definitely a good option if anyone does want to go for like a higher stat routes, for example. This is not bad. But this one does bound to a high firepower for once. And then secondly, this one is going to be bounded to a infighter job. So ideally for like a enemy reduction type build, you do want to be using it on a defender type job license if possible, because you do have auto guard whenever your enemy does try to hit you. So bounding this to an infighter is more or less like probably not, right? So but definitely a good setup right there if any of you guys do. So basically, I'll trade this one if you guys want to get basically that EXQ power boosting, or if you guys just purely want this for if you guys are not running this for like a enemy reduction type build, I would say don't even go for alternating it. Or unless you guys just want this purely for the stat, and then maybe your subslot has another better option for portrait, then that works as well. But other than that, I will have to say this one is maybe another skip as well. I don't know. Because like it's either you want like extremely like everything is like power boosting, or you want something else. So this one is definitely going to be that different type of playstyle, which is like doesn't really cater. I don't know. I don't even know if that's a cater to a lot of people. Do let me know, like from my viewer over here, like do let me know like how many of you guys do have like, let's say like enemy type reduction build. I just want to know what kind of statistic we're looking at, right? So that do let me know that down in the comment section below. But other than that, this one is probably a skip as well for me personally. Moving into the backpack, yeah. Backpack is definitely going to be the part that I would say, please I'll share this part if you guys do ever pulled it. because this is going to be our first time having a 40% trade backpack over here. So this is a monumental moment, if I will, because typically, right, typically we don't have the backpack that has a portrait. So this one is like a rare occasion as well. So they definitely did a good job of making this backpack. Uh, has a 40% trade, so this one is definitely gonna age a good while for sure. But the downside is it's gonna be bound to close combat. So in terms of my personal build, if I were to run, let's say, like, all right, so my problem is if I'm running close combat in my mobile fighter tag build, I cannot really run that efficiently because there's just nowadays there's just a lot of like portrait that wants you to be using high firepower, so you cannot really get out of not using that. So I mean, maybe pro tag, you want to drop pro tag, but you can't really drop pro tag because it actually gives you 10% melee attack. So it's a really tough option nowadays because there are just too many options out there that want you to be using specifically this over that. So, but this one is dude, this one is definitely good. Having a double melee boosting, so wow, fantastic right there. So look at that extremely high, let's say, armor base right there, and look at that defense. Is that looking at 7,000? Oh my gosh, 7,000? This is gonna translate really well because of like, if you take 40% of that 7,000 and add that towards that melee attack, that's why this one is currently the highest, melee parts in the game. Like just beating God Gundam by like a little bit, by two, like roughly about 200. So that is really good. So excellent word tag is over there, high firepower, and then close combat. If you guys do ever put a chest, this is definitely gonna be the one you want to be getting for sure. So so far I would just have to say maybe the hit and then the backpack are good options so far. What about the melee weapon? In terms of the melee weapon, this is currently, if I recall, what was it again? I think this one is currently like the highest one in the game. I think it's either first or second. This one is actually pretty good as well. So, but I will have to say this one does have quite a restriction right there. For once, it does want you to be using an infighter right there as well. This one is going to be locked down to a speed attribute. So if you ever want to run this on like your other different type of building, you're out of luck. So yeah, and this one right here lock into an infighter. So if you ever run into a situation where your other parts here are dedicated to, let's say, Outfighter, sorry, you gotta find a different part to be using. So, but nonetheless, this is definitely gonna be a pretty good let's say Beam Saber or any, or filtering in any Korean, let's say, melee weapon you're using. This one is definitely a good option as well. But if you guys currently, let's say, if you guys are using the double quantifold saber, that full saber sword, that one is definitely a better option for me personally because that one actually had what pro tag and close combat, and that one is literally doing what this one is doing, but that one is not really restricting to, let's say, a job lessons or even like a for like the initial charge boosting. It's only locked down to close combat, which is a lot more easy to kind of work around with. But this is definitely not a bad option for sure. If anyone does want to invest into it, this one is definitely a good one to go over. But the only downside is like the word tag wise over here does have Gundam type. So if you are in a situation where you cannot pull a second copy of this one, for example, you can definitely look into the big scale category, like big scale beam saber category, or just saber category in general. They will definitely have some really good option where you can just kind of sub slot in to get rid of, let's say, Gundam type and presumably get into, let's say, pro tag or even close combat. So that is going to be pretty much it in terms of this review over here. I will have to say the head part is definitely going to be a must-have. It's just unfortunate, right? What is it? One of the first portrait is locked down to the arm. Well, I mean, like that's basically what they can do, because there is only like one attacking EX skill. So, like what else can I put? Like what melee power boosting? If they would have done that, that would be welcome as well. But they did not. So backpack is definitely going to be the second choice as well. And then a beam saber or the melee weapon, that is depending on if you have already better options out there already, or even good, standard options out there already. Other than that, probably I don't know if you want to skip that. It's a good option. That is definitely providing really good Good stat, definitely good stat. But you know, it's just the portrait, right? Just these two restrictions. If you guys can live up with the restriction and the vortex setup over here, go for it. But if not, this is like I would just say wait for something that's a little bit more easy to just kind of build around. So that's just basically what I think about them. So with that being said, that is gonna be pretty much it for this alteration review over here, and then I'll catch you guys out on the next one.